This is Chris Spear, and you're listening to Chefs Without Restaurants, the show where I speak with culinary entrepreneurs and people working in the food and beverage industry outside of a traditional restaurant setting. Hey gang, welcome back, and thanks for being patient while I work through some scheduling issues on my end. I clearly have not been consistent this past year, but it is what it is, and here we are. I'd actually planned to release this episode quite some time ago, so apologies to anyone who's been waiting, especially Brandon, my guest. Today, I am joined by Chef Brandon Rogers. With more than 15 years in the hospitality industry, he's cooked in Michelin-level restaurants, worked in luxury hotels, and now runs a private chef business based in the Chicago area. But you might know him from the most recent season of Next Level Chef, where he competed alongside a number of talented chefs, including friend of the show and previous guest, Bobby Hicks. In this episode, we get into Brandon's culinary background, his evolution as a chef, and of course, what it's like cooking on a Gordon Ramsay TV show. We talk about the fast-paced nature of the competition, the challenges of grabbing ingredients off that moving platform, and what it's really like behind the scenes. Because I also host another podcast, Personal Chef Business Startup Guide, I decided to take part of our conversation that focuses on building a private chef business and release that as a separate episode over on that podcast stream. I've never done that before, and up to this point, all those episodes had been repurposed older episodes, but my intention had always been to get new episodes over there, so here we are. So I hope you enjoy this episode where you hear a little bit about Brandon's background and cooking on a TV show that's hosted by Gordon Ramsay. But if you really want to get into the nuts and bolts of a personal chef business, hop on over. That episode is out now and is linked in the show notes. And as always, thanks so much for listening and have a great week. Hey, Brandon, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm looking forward to talking to you. You're kind of a food TV celebrity right now. You're currently appearing on Next Level Chef with Chef Gordon Ramsay. That's a pretty big deal.
No, that's a huge deal.
I got to say, though, we're team Bobby Hicks in my house. Just Bobby's a friend of the podcast, a personal friend. I got him on speed dial when I got a question about some stuff. But you're my number two. You're my number two. So is that okay?
I'll take that. Hey, there's nobody better to be behind than Bobby. So I'll take that.
It's really fun, though, because my kids are at the age where they're enjoying watching the cooking competition shows, too. My wife used to be a chef, so it's one of the shows that we, every week, get together and throw on and watch. So they've been having a good time as well as myself.
That's incredible. You know, I never realized how many people love this show until afterwards. And it's kind of funny because they tell you, 8 million people watched the first episode of last season and this, that, and the other. And it's like, that doesn't really hit you until you're actually on TV and the outpouring of love from everybody that watches the show religiously. You know what I mean? They start to reach out to you and cheer you on and things like that. And it's just like, wow.
Well, and it's weird and it's chaotic and it's unlike any other cooking show out there. I think it truly is unique.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We're going to get to that in a little bit, but I want to start with, you as a chef. Did you always grow up loving food? And when did you think about becoming a professional chef?
Yeah, I fell in love with food at a really, really early age. I always tell people that my first love was eating. And so my second love had to be cooking because I had to feed that appetite, I grew up in a family of, I'm the oldest of 6 kids.
That's a lot.
Yeah, tell me about it. And the women in my family were very, very strong cooks. So, I spent a lot of my time, if I wasn't outside, I was in the kitchen and trying to learn. And it's really funny. I was in charge of making sure that all of my siblings and I got to school on time, and my little sister, Ashley, she's a huge foodie as well. So, as soon as my mom would leave to go to work, I'd be in the kitchen or both be in the kitchen, her telling me what to cook, and I'd be in there just frying chicken, if you will, before we go to elementary school. So I could definitely say that the love for food started at a really, really early age.
I self-describe as a little fat kid. A lot of people like to eat, but they don't always turn that into something professional. In fact, I think when I was coming up, a lot of people discouraged me from doing it professionally because, it's a hard industry. There's a lot of hard industries,
Absolutely.
But I think historically it's a hard one, but I, pushed against that. And it's something that I did. You went to culinary school and jumped right into the culinary field. So when you got out of school, where did you start? What were you doing?
Well, funny story. It took me a while to even get into the food industry. I worked in hospitality, but when it came to being a chef, I went to culinary school. I started back in 2019. So before that, I worked in event management. I was on the front end of the hospitality industry, planning social and corporate events. I've worked in luxury hotels. I've worked for McCormick Place. I used to work in law firms and just planning all of their events, whether it was galas, conferences, conventions. And then I was in between jobs one day and I decided that if I didn't, I was actually having a conversation with one of my best friends. And, he was always telling me like, oh, you're so amazing at cooking. Why are you not making money cooking? And, I just kind of was like, well, if I don't go to culinary school, if I don't at least try, that's something that I would regret for the rest of my life. And I decided to go to culinary school, started working in a few different restaurants through my journey in culinary school. But, I remember I was working at an Indian fine dining restaurant and one of my good friends, Brandon, I was on the train ride home. It was Diwali weekend. So we were working like 15, 16-hour days, man. It was brutal. And I remember I was on the train at like 2 a.m. going home and I could barely like stand up. I was so exhausted. And he got on the train and he was like, I just started with this private chef startup. Why don't you come interview there? And that's how I got into the private chef industry.
This is a great transition, I think, because we're talking kind of marketing and social media.
Yeah.
I guess along with that comes being on a television show. So, and I'm assuming you have already seen a bump in people who are interested in you, what you do, following you online, and maybe that'll continue to grow. But let's talk about this Next Level Chef. What was it like when you found out you were going to be on the show?
It's actually really, really funny. So throughout the process, they actually contacted me. I had done an interview for or a separate show the summer before. And so when I was contacted about Next Level Chef, they had found me. And I don't think my presence was that big on social media at the time. But when they contacted me, I literally thought it was a scam. I was like, why would they be contacting me and out of everybody? But the more that I talked to the casting producers and all of that, I started to feel a lot more comfortable. And luckily that was the case because I went through the audition process and I think that I was actually in a hotel when I did my audition, and it's like a Zoom interview, if you will. And they have requirements that your camera has to be set up a certain type of way. There has to be a certain amount of lighting and this, that, and the other. And, for me, none of that stuff was set up really. So luckily my casting producer was really, really cool. He got me up to speed, helped me figure it all out. And we recorded a really, really cool casting video. Made me feel very, very comfortable. And so, yeah, after that, they send it over to the network. And then if they hear something back from the network, they'll let us know. Otherwise, I guess it's safe to assume that you're not going to be on the show. And I was being contacted maybe like once a month or something like that, just making sure that I was still interested, but then also just letting me know that they have seen some interest and things like that.
Was it hard waiting? Because I know it was a long time ago that you filmed the show. Like, is it really tough to, like, you're done, you come home, and now you're just like sitting waiting for this show to air?
Yeah, we filmed the show over the course of like a month. And, it was a whole year that we had to wait before we could ever even tell anybody, which was probably one of the hardest things that I've had to do in my entire life, because it's like you have this secret, this burning secret, and you just want to tell everybody and you can't tell anyone. So it's like, for me, I just had to keep my head down and just work, knowing that, I had this on the forefront or approaching and just waiting to know when we could tell everybody. So yeah, when they finally give you the go ahead that you are okay to tell everybody that you're going to be on the show, it's like the biggest, the greatest feeling ever,
So for people who maybe have never seen this or don't know the concept, can you give them the quick description of how this show works? Because it is so different than a traditional, kind of like maybe like a Top Chef, except that you have moving platforms and three different types of kitchens, one kind of skanky. I mean, I don't know how you describe it. One that looks like your normal kitchen that almost everyone's worked in, and then the like Michelin star kitchen.
Yeah. So the premise of the show, it is Gordon Ramsay's show, and there are three different levels, and each level has its own kitchen. It's supposed to signify Gordon Ramsay's journey through the restaurant industry. So, down in the basement, it's like you have the bottom of the barrel equipment, the worst of the worst. And then as you move up in the ranks, the middle kitchen is supposed to be like your average commercial kitchen. And then that top level, like you said, is that Michelin starred kitchen. The best of the best equipment is up there. And I think that there's supposed to be an intimidation factor, if you will, from like the basement level kitchen. And it's kind of funny because a lot of us chefs found like peace and solace down in the basement, just because you start to recognize the great qualities of the basement for what they are. It allows you to be a little bit more rustic in your approach. It doesn't have like your blenders or your food processors down there, so you don't have to focus on making, that Michelin quality dish. You focus on making sure that it's a great tasting product.
Well, I've always said that, I think a lot of times some things in fine dining are almost like a crutch. Like, sure, you can make Wagyu steak delicious and using caviar and all that, and you've got all this fancy equipment, but like, take all the fancy equipment away, take all the high-end ingredients away, and you can see what a chef can do. Like, can you take a pig's head and make it a delicious dish? And I think the great thing is we've seen so many chefs on this show this season really taking those items from the basement. Sometimes nice things sneak by, like you'll get some scallops in the basement, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you get the weird stuff down there, and you've got to make that into a star dish. And we've seen that a good couple times this season. And it's a really interesting concept to me.
Next Level Chef does a great job of throwing you some curveballs, especially when you're down in the basement. And you're right. It's being able to take those humble ingredients and really transform it into a star quality dish. And, I think that a lot of people don't necessarily recognize the amount of discipline and restraint that you need to have as a chef once you start going up in those higher levels, because once you're up there, the expectation is not only greater, but, someone, let's say like myself, who is turned on by new gadgets and appliances and things like that, the amount of items and gadgets and stuff that's up there can really get the best of you if you allow it to, because you just want to try everything. You want to impress the judges. So if you're not able to kind of hone that in and really be more disciplined in your approach, then you're not going to be successful up there.
Well, I think, it was maybe 2 weeks ago, the chef had like that little hibachi grill. And I think that kind of like did her in there, right? Because how many I've never used one of those with the Binchoten charcoal or whatever. Like, I know how to throw something on a regular gas grill in a kitchen, but give me one of those fancy tabletop grills. It's like, I don't know how the heat's regulated, what the temp is. And we've seen those things that kind of undo the successes of chefs because, they're maybe not familiar with that fancy stuff.
And it's really, really cool too, because when you think about it, I mean, if you think about how small that box grill is, but then you're putting a product like Binchoten in there, which is literally the highest, it's the hottest burning charcoal that on earth, and so you only need a few pieces in there and the heat is out of this world. And if you're not ready for that, then again, you're going to ruin your product. Again, if it's a lot of the items that are up there, it's like shiny new toys, you know what I mean? But if you don't have the experience, or if you don't have the amount of restraint and discipline that it takes to succeed up there, good luck.
So we're probably like 6 weeks into the show being on. So, we can't get into how it all works out for you and some of the things coming, but we have enough basis there. One of the things was, you had to go into a final challenge, even though you did really well. Your chef, Richard Blais there, decided his strategy early on was going to be to put the good chefs in to go up against the other team. Did that make you nervous knowing that you had done really well, but then you were still going to have to be put to the test one-on-one?
No, it didn't. I think that, Chef Blais had let us know ahead of, beforehand that like when your name is called, just be ready to go. And, I looked at it from like an athletic standpoint. You know what I mean? It's like each one of us as chefs were like, put me in, coach. I'm ready, So I think that you could really tell on my face in that episode. I knew it was going to be me and I wanted it to be me. I was so ready. And again, it's a mindset thing, if you allow yourself to focus on the fact that like I'm going in to the elimination instead of being like, you know what, this is my chance that I get to cook, you're going to get swallowed whole. You know what I mean? I was ready. I was hungry. So
Hey, just a quick break here to let you know that if you're really interested in the business side of being a personal or private chef, there's a whole other part of this conversation over on my other podcast, Personal Chef Business Startup Guide. That's where Brandon and I dive deep into how he structures his services, finds clients, and manages high-level meal prep for athletes and busy professionals. If you're building a personal chef business, go check it out. The episode is live now.
I was glad that he chose me.
Did you ever grab anything that you wish you didn't? Like you just reach and blindly grab something and then you're like, oh crap. Is that something that happens? I imagine whether it's you or someone else, at some point someone's just snatched something off there that they were not fond of.
All the time, but at the same time too, I kind of had this strategy that, I didn't want to focus on trying to put things back, if you will. If you notice, like in the beginning, I kind of just like stood in one spot and was just grabbing what was around me. And then once, let's say we got to like episode 3 and 4, you actually start seeing me move all around the platform just to see what was there, because I felt like I was going to be able to get like a better grab. And then like maybe sauces and oils might be on one side and then your fresh herbs and all of that might be on another side, or whatever the case may be. But in order to build a more cohesive dish, I felt like the opportunity to do that would be way greater if I was able to, maneuver around the platform as opposed to just standing in one spot.
You're also a big guy, long arms and stuff too, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. The ramen challenge where the platform didn't stop, not a problem. I got at least like 5 more seconds going up and 5 more seconds going down with these long arms. So, just you got to be able to use what you got in order to get to where you want to be. And I, if you notice in one of the episodes, one of the contestants had grabbed something and then they noticed that there was something else on the platform that they would rather have that was a better protein. And then after, the platform started moving and you look down and you only have like 2 ingredients, So it's like, I told myself that once I pick something, I'm going to stick with that and just keep going. And I think that strategy proved to work pretty well for me.
What's it like having, how many cameras are there, give or take? Like, because we don't see any of that. Is it, I'm assuming, a huge thing and they're like literally everywhere?
Honestly, they are literally everywhere. Like I was looking, they're in the ceiling, they're on the walls, if, to be honest with you, the really, really cool aspect about it, I was fascinated with the whole TV side because I'm like, there's so many cameras doing so many things that I've never seen before. You know what I mean? But like, as soon as they told us, like, it's time to cook, I didn't see a camera. There were actually cameramen that were walking around as well to kind of get closer shots while we were cooking. And, I don't know, like as soon as they were like 3, 2, 1, go, I didn't see anything except for the fire and the food that was in front of me.
Just got to keep your head down and get to it, right?
Yeah. And it's challenging as well because, Chef Blais, I followed his career, from Top Chef all the way now to Next Level Chefs. Same with Chef Arrington. And, all of us have so much respect for Gordon Ramsay as well. It's like when you're cooking and they come up to you trying to have a conversation with you, it's like impossible not to start fangirling, So just allowing that to not throw you off of your game and shift your focus is a challenge within itself outside of all of the cameras as well. So,
yeah, I imagine that's a huge, immense pressure. I mean, I always to some extent get nervous just cooking for people, but one being on TV, but you've got those 3 chefs in front of you. I can't imagine putting up plates for them. especially
Yeah.
Chef Ramsay. He seems a little intimidating, although he seems nice on this show in
Yeah.
particular.
Well, it's actually really funny. Like, I remember during the professional chef auditions, after that first round of cooking, we get in the elevator and he turns around and he's like, "You guys need to get your heads out of your asses. Let's go." And I remember just thinking, before I left to go on the show, I was like, "Oh God, I don't know what I'm going to do if Chef Ramsay starts yelling in my face or, cursing me out." And I get in the elevator, I'm like, "Wow, he just cursed at me. That's so cool."
Check that off the bucket list.
All right.
He was just in my city like 2 weeks ago. I guess he's doing a new show, some like restaurant, like renovation kind of thing, not like Kitchen Nightmares,
Okay.
but we didn't even know about it. And they
Yeah.
completely put like a tent up around this restaurant and shut down for a week. And then I had a little FOMO. I'm on Instagram seeing all these people tag him like I was at Sheetz and Gordon Ramsay was like, out there at the gas station. Oh, Gordon Ramsay was walking around downtown. I was like, he was like 2 minutes from where I live and I didn't get to even see him. Yeah.
It's incredible. He has an amazing team, and the shows, just the variety of different shows that they're able to come up with, and he does. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, I don't even know when that man finds time to sleep. You know what I mean? The amount of things that he has going
unlike
on.
you and I. He has a team, right?
It's like that's the missing puzzle piece.
100%. What did you learn about yourself through this process? Like, do you feel like you became a better chef and just like personal and professional growth from the whole experience?
Oh, absolutely. I think that one of the coolest things about the show within itself is the relationships that I was able to build with the other contestants. These are like family members that I'll have for the rest of my life. And the amount of support that we all give to each other is just so infectious. It's amazing. But it's definitely made me a better chef. You as a private chef, or even working in event management, you recognize that there is always an opportunity for something to go wrong. So you always have to be thinking on your toes or just ready to pivot. And, doing this on TV as well, it's that times 100, that times 1,000 even sometimes. And, it sets you up in the mind with the mindset that like, it doesn't matter what's being thrown your way, you're going to get through it and you're going to succeed. I can definitely say the show has made me a better chef. I think the chef that I was a year ago compared to what I am now it's like night and day. So I'm extremely grateful for the show.
So it sounds like you recommend this if someone has the opportunity to go on a show. Would you say go all in?
Absolutely. That you only live once at the end of the day, and you ultimately don't know what this will do for your career. And just being able to have a conversation with some of these chefs that are out there and making themselves vulnerable and succeeding at some of the highest levels. I mean, that's what we all as chefs hope for, to be able to rub elbows, if you will, with these types of people and have conversations with them or seek guidance, and you never know, when you're put into a situation where you're uncomfortable, that's a lot of times when you do your best work. So imagine being pushed into doing TV where you have no idea what's going on. You have no idea what's coming next. You're just forced to react.
I think people don't like being like looking bad or being embarrassed. I think the thing holding people back is going on the show. It's a new experience, a new environment, and just like, I'm going to go on and forget something and just look like an idiot, right? Like I'm going to serve raw fish or I'm not going to know how to bone out a chicken or something like that.
At that point, it's like, you got to trust the producers because at the end of the day, their intention isn't to make you look bad or make you look or feel stupid. They're there to support you in every way possible and really bring out the best chef that they possibly can in you. And, again, people make mistakes. We have, professional chefs that were on the show that have cut themselves. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, it's like, this is such a unique show. Like where are you ever going to run up to a platform, have 30 seconds to pick all of the ingredients to make a cohesive dish and then turn around and try to come up with that dish in the moment and have 20 minutes to cook it? You're not. So I think that you just have to you have to allow yourself to know that you may make mistakes and it's okay. It's not about the mistake itself. It's how you come away from that mistake or you pivot and move forward. And that's what's most important.
Well, I'm trying to make you, as a podcast producer and host, I'm going to try and make you sound good. It's the same thing. Like, I'm going to listen to this thing and it's like, oh, this was a little weird or awkward or something, and this needs to get cut. Like, there's been times I've listened to episodes, I'm like, this is kind of boring or it's not good. And then I get it done. I'm like, oh, I'm kind of happy. Like, I wish people could hear the unedited version because I did good. It's like always before the commercial break, there's some chaos. Like, they create tension. I think that's a good thing about like producing and storytelling. It's like, oh, they made it look like she's going to put up this raw chicken, or they missed the platform. And then you're holding for like 2 minutes during the commercial, like, oh man, she didn't make it. And then it comes back and of course she made the platform, or of course the chicken got cooked in time. They're creating that tension, and it's always right before the commercial break. That's good TV producing right there.
I absolutely agree. If there isn't an element of keeping you on the edge of your seat, then like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, that's what everybody watches TV for, that reason. And, I think that one of the greatest things about Next Level Chef is that, their focus isn't on the drama. There's a lot of TV shows out there, or even cooking shows, that really, really love the dramatic aspect of it. And Next Level Chef isn't about that. Next Level Chef is about the food and literally the sport in which we're running over to a platform, choosing all of those ingredients and being able to create magic within the allowed amount of time. So,
yeah, we love it. What do you have for final words for our listeners today? Anything, whether it be personal chef, private chef, TV chef, any of it? What do you want to leave everyone with?
I think that it's, for me, one of the things that I'm most gracious for is the fact that I made the decision to really just follow my dreams. That I think that today is no better day than to do what it is that you love, or really find what it is that you love and move forward in that direction. I think that there have been times where I've been in the kitchen for damn near 24 hours and you would never be able to tell the next day, because I don't feel like I've worked. I'm in my happy place, and I can't tell you how different of a person I am when I feel like I'm living in my purpose, as opposed to going to work and being somewhere that I don't want to be every day. I think that there is some truth behind it being extremely difficult to get into the industry. If there's anything that I can ever do to help anybody, don't be afraid to reach out to me. I want to see everybody succeed.
I love that. I hope everyone, as much as possible, can, follow their dreams and do something they love. I love what I do. You clearly are loving what you do. So what a way to live life.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming on the show. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you for having me.
And to all of our listeners, as always, this has been Chris with Chefs Without Restaurants. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great week.
Thank you.
You're still here? The podcast's over. If you are indeed still here, thanks for taking the time to listen to the show. I'd love to direct you to one place, and that's chefswithoutrestaurants.org. From there, you'll be able to join our email newsletter, get connected in our free Facebook group, and join our personal chef, catering, and food truck database so I can help get you more job leads. And you'll also find a link to our sponsor page, where you'll find products and services I love. You pay nothing additional to use these links, but I may get a small commission, which helps keep the Chefs Without Restaurants podcast and organization running. You might even get a discount for using some of these links. As always, you can reach out to me on Instagram at Chefs Without Restaurants, or send me an email at chefswithoutrestaurants@gmail.com. Thanks so much.